Well, hey there. Can I let you in on a little behind the scenes tea? I've been recording How Long Till Bedtime every single week for over 3.5 years now. And I still feel like I'm podcasting into a bit of a void sometimes. Don't get me wrong, I know you're out there listening. I see the downloads, I hear from a few of you on Instagram, but I don't really know who you all are. And that makes it really challenging to plan content that truly hits home for you. So I'm trying something new. I've created a short listener survey to learn more about you, how you found the show, what you love, and what you wish I do more or less of. It'll take just a few minutes, and I'd be so grateful for your input. And as a thank you, everyone who fills out the survey will get a free 15-minute sleep coaching call with me. No strings attached, just a friendly chat to support you with whatever sleep challenge you're navigating. And if you complete the survey before July 31st, you'll also be entered to win a Whoop strap. It's the version 4 with 2 free months of the Whoop service included. I love my Whoop. It tracks all of my sleep, and I'm so happy to be able to pass along one to a listener. You'll find the link in the show notes to the survey, or you can head straight to sleepandwellnesscoach.com/survey. This show is built for you, so help me make it even better. Thanks as always for listening. I can't wait to learn more about the incredible community behind these earbuds. Now, on to today's episode. Today, Ellen is joining me to talk about children's anxiety around fireworks and just generally how to best navigate our children's sleep throughout the entire July 4th holiday weekend. So pop those earbuds in and join us for this chat. Hi, I'm Allison Egidi, a pediatric sleep and wellness coach and a mom of 2. I love to help parents find solutions. This is How Long Till Bedtime. Well, hey, Ellen, thanks so much for coming back on the podcast to join me to talk about July 4th, but more specifically around fireworks, which every year I hear from a lot of parents about anticipating fireworks and then after the fact, things that happen with fireworks and any regressions that have been triggered. So, we connected about Dom in a previous episode in the kind of before we dive in segment and some potential concerns he had around 4th of July. So before you fill me in on that conversation or conversations that were happening a few months back with Dom, can you tell everyone how old he is?
Yeah, so Dom is 3, right in the
Good old
thick of it.
threes,
Yeah.
right in the thick of it. And fill us in on how the topic of July 4th and fireworks even came up.
Okay, so it came up because I can't remember exactly when it was, but there was a day that there were fireworks, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. I wasn't expecting that. It wasn't 4th of July. And he was like, what is that? It was like right around, like he was in bed, but I don't think he had fallen asleep yet. So I think they were doing him kind of early. And he was like, what's going on? And I knew he was not going to get settled back down without having an answer to that question of like, what is this? So I go up there and we're talking about fireworks, and I try to open his window because it was some of our neighbors. So I felt like he could maybe see some of them. So he's asking all these questions. We see fireworks. And I feel like it's probably my fault that he has a whole bunch of questions about the 4th of July because I said, yeah, they sometimes happen. People are celebrating. We can just kind of roll back over if we hear them in our bed and think about all the people who are celebrating and having fun together. And it'll happen again on the 4th of July. So I put that right in there, not even thinking twice about it, just trying to be like lighthearted. And then, yeah, anytime there's thunder or a loud noise, or the next day, I think there are even some fireworks, he's like, is it the 4th of July? So then he started to have a ton of questions about the 4th of July.
So he's really anticipating the 4th of July. And so I'm curious how you responded when he started to have this angst about the 4th of July. And then I think you said more recently when you and I chatted, maybe it's kind of died down.
Yes, so that played on for a little bit. Like he was asking about 4th of July when there's, I think it was just like 2 or 3 days that people sporadically did fireworks, whatever holiday that was around. So we would ask every time that came up. And then it transitioned into storms and loud booms. And then he started asking, is it the 4th of July? Is it coming up? Like, is it almost the 4th of July? So he was asking a lot for like a period of time. And then, yeah, like you said, it's kind of faded out right now. So we'll see what happens when the fireworks actually start.
Has he seen fireworks intentionally where you've gone out and seen any go off or not yet?
Not yet. So when that all started happening, he was really interested in like watching videos of them on my phone and seeing like, if it was happening at a time that he could see them just from our house, but we didn't like go out to go see any yet.
Okay. And has he said anything about being scared, or he just seems to have some angst about it? Or anticipation, maybe.
Yeah, I can't remember if he has said scared about them. I mean, he's talked about that they're loud. And he's like, what was that loud noise? But I don't think he said that it's scaring him.
Okay, good.
Or if he did, it wasn't like the majority of the conversation. It was more just like, what is this? Like, what's going on? Never heard this before.
Which I think is such a good starting point because, we've all heard fireworks for so long, and I'm sure none of us remember when we first heard them or registered them. And there is that unknown for kids at some point when they hear them. And so the first thing that comes to mind when you're sharing this story is that moment where we want to be thoughtful about what the words we use around fireworks. So, of course, you were totally caught off guard because it wasn't 4th of July. You had not been thinking about it. And one thing that I think can be a natural response is to even proactively say, those are just fireworks. You don't need to be scared. And so we want to be thoughtful about not even planting the concept of being scared, which it sounds like you didn't, and nor did he make that leap to this is something that he should potentially be scared of, which is great because even if you don't use the word scared, sometimes they'll make that leap themselves. And so that would be one of the first tips I would give parents as July 4th approaches is to think in advance of how you want to respond to questions about fireworks and specifically words you want to use around them. And so I would actually propose that you think in advance about positive words to use. So you could say, oh, that's the sound of fireworks. They're going off. And they are really cool and loud. They are loud and they're cool and they can be really pretty and they can come in different colors and shapes and sizes and some will go higher and some will go lower. And kind of feeding into their curiosity of answering what's happening, but being thoughtful to not even say, don't be scared, or planning any words that would have reason to make them worry. And I love that you showed videos. So that's always something I recommend to parents is if it comes up out of the blue and you hadn't talked about fireworks and they're curious about what they are, to absolutely show them videos and watch the videos in advance, everyone. Do not just go on YouTube and do fireworks because what you might stumble upon are all the hilarious slash terrifying videos of fireworks gone wrong, where they like shoot into the crowd or shoot to a house. And so always, always, always be sure to screen the video you want to show them. And I would show the very classic, like 4th of July fireworks at the park or the baseball stadium, going off and it looks lovely and delightful. Um, and so I love that you showed him the videos. And then it's making me think back to when did I actually start to prep my kids? Because similar to you, I did not prep them when they were 1 or 2 years old for fireworks. I didn't take them to see fireworks. I didn't actually take them to see fireworks until they were 6 and 7 years old. So in those early years, I just put them to bed ahead of fireworks. And I got lucky, as far as I can remember, the fireworks never woke them up. And I never really got questions prior to them learning what fireworks are. I'm sure we had encountered them somewhere along the way, not related to 4th of July, where they heard them and I pointed out that they were fireworks. But I think that's kind of the next question that a lot of parents have is when should we have our kids stay up for fireworks? And I'm curious, Ellen, what are your plans around 4th of July and fireworks?
I mean, we love the early bedtime, and he does so well. He has to go to bed early, or else it's like a disaster. So, yeah, we'll probably be in the same boat as you, like not staying up to go see them. There's some in my parents' neighborhood. There's like a nursing home that like backs up to my parents' neighborhood, and sometimes they do it a little early. I can't remember exactly what time that is. So, potentially, if that is going off, maybe we'll go, but we won't. Like our riverfront has fireworks, but it's much later, so we will not be participating in that until he's a little older.
It's often after 9 o'clock. I mean, by the time it gets dark, it ends up being so late.
Right.
Yeah, when my kids were before 6 and 7, it might have been the 2 years prior to that, we were in Chicago visiting my father-in-law and the rest of my husband's Chicago family. And we did fireworks out in his yard probably at like 5 p.m. And it just gave my kids a chance to see them and to experience it. And I think we could see some color on them. We didn't do a bunch. Maybe we did like 6 or 7, but they got to see it. I remember one liked it, and Ainsley, my younger one, liked it, and Addison did not. So she was like, "It's loud." It all felt too close and too intense, and she was over it very quickly.
Based on my kids' personalities, that's exactly how I feel like my oldest will be like, absolutely not. The one that has all the questions about
Yes.
it. And then Josie, who just is like a party animal already at 1, like she's gonna be so interested.
She'll be so into it. And so I think that time, did I even have her stay? I don't think she and I even stayed out for the whole thing. We were just on the back patio, but I think I just took her in. I was like, okay, we'll head up and brush your teeth. And they kept going off for a little while. And she definitely wanted it to end before they went to bed. And I was nervous because there were people coming over for fireworks at that house that night. And I was like, oh my gosh, please just let them get to sleep and not wake up. And they didn't. They slept through fireworks at the house. Nobody woke up. I was really grateful for that. Um,
That's amazing. Yeah.
and so I do think that's one idea that people can explore if they want to. I only did it because it was convenient. But if there is something like you mentioned, where you can go see some daytime fireworks, if your kids are interested, and I would only really do it if they've expressed interest, you can see them in advance. And then the other thing, and I would definitely be doing this with Dom this year, is just prepping him when there will be fireworks. And so I think this year, 4th of July is on a Friday. My guess is, I mean, you might hear them a whole week in advance, but I bet you'll start hearing them on Thursday night at a minimum. And so I would think about kind of ahead of that, saying, hey, this coming weekend is 4th of July, telling them what your weekend plans are. Typically, there's some, whatever, family barbecue, we're going to do this. And over the weekend, we'll probably hear some fireworks. I'm sure you'll hear some before he goes to bed. People are lighting off fireworks all the time over 4th of July.
Totally.
And I'm sure you'll hear some fireworks. Um, and, you know, I just wanted to give you a heads up. We can watch a fireworks show this weekend to celebrate on the TV or on the iPad or whatever, and come up with your own way to show him the fireworks. But we're not going to go to one of the shows yet because they happen so late, or just explain what to anticipate. And then I would also empower him specifically with, you know, in other years when there's been fireworks, you're such a great sleeper that you have slept right through them. You're such a great sleeper, and I bet you'll sleep through them again this year. But if you wake up and hear them, you can just roll over and go back to sleep. Hopefully, they don't go on too late. So just giving him that heads up so that when he does hear them, hopefully he rolls over and goes back to sleep. But for kids who don't, and my kids always slept through them, I was lucky in that regard. But kids who don't sleep through them, I do think you can always acknowledge that this is happening, that this is what it is, that we don't want them to worry. And you can always pop in and say, if it were Dom, yes, those are the fireworks, and hopefully they'll end soon. But you don't need to worry, and it's still time to sleep. And I'm sorry that they woke you up. But trying to hold your structure and not, I don't want to say overreact, but not feed into it too much that we need to worry about them. Because sometimes I think we jump so quickly into the comfort mode that we can almost plant the idea that there was a reason to be nervous about it.
Totally. That's how I feel like it's gone with storms, which is what our before we dive in conversation was about. Like we've had plenty since we've had that conversation, and he does said like he's like, oh, okay, it's storming, and then like I don't, he doesn't call out, he doesn't really ask for help. So having that conversation that was just like, hey, it's a storm, and you're good. It's time to sleep. You might see some lightning. You're just kind of like describing what they're gonna see, which is what you're saying, like it has shown to like work. Like he's done great and like the storms haven't bothered him.
Well, I love to hear that. We had a huge storm here last night, here before we're recording, which is in May. But we had a huge, huge storm that went on for hours. And it started, I think, even prior to bedtime. It had been raining all day, and then these huge storms blew in. And I was taking the girls up to bed, I thought of you because Ainsley said, I love falling asleep during storms. I love listening to them. And Addison said, I don't. I don't like it at all. And and then one of our dogs not bothered and one is bothered. And
Oh, that's so
then they were
funny.
saying, yeah, so Buddy's like Ainsley. He probably thinks it's relaxing. And Addison said, Gigi's like me. She doesn't like it at all. And so I took Gigi up to her bed, and when I was putting Addison to bed and reading to her, and then Gigi went under the bed, and Addison said, sometimes I want to hide under the bed when there's big storms. And this storm was legit big enough that I was a little rattled myself. And I had to really say, like, all right, you're gonna have to keep it together here. And so I just told her, like, it's okay to not like it. But once you fall asleep, my guess is you will sleep through it. And this morning I asked her what happened, and she said, once I fell asleep, I didn't hear it. And I said, okay, well, I was up listening to it till about 11:45 when I fell asleep, and it was still going. And she's like, really? Really? I said, yeah, but you fell asleep and it was great. And Ainsley said, oh, a couple of the thunders woke me up, and I loved it. So I just think also kids are just so unique, but try not to let our own angst creep in, and then also continuing to hold the structure. So I didn't try to convince her she should like it.
Right. And I like how you said not over comforting too, because I feel like in that situation it'd be so easy to like, here, have this, 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 and this. And even if it's not to the point of, come sleep in our bed or come do that, like, and maybe further extreme, but even to, have this, and this. And like, you're right, you do need all of these things because of the storms or the fireworks, like to keep the structure of what you've been doing and not add anything extra, because that suggests that, oh, you're right, this is an issue. Like,
Right, right. And so I'm so glad that the storm has not created more angst for Dom and that he's moved on and maybe he'll advance to liking it.
well, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully.
Okay, so you're not going to do fireworks this year, most likely. And I fall into the camp of people can decide what's best for their family. I didn't do fireworks until my girls, as I mentioned, were 6 or 7. I don't regret that. Mainly, the main reason I didn't do it was because Addison, similar to Dom, is so sensitive to going to bed later that it wasn't that I thought she would be scared or negatively impacted by the fireworks. It was more that I didn't want us to have to deal with the consequences of her staying up and the rest of the weekend being a disaster. And so I think that's what everyone should keep in mind as they're weighing when is the right time to keep kids up for fireworks. By the time we had them stay up, they were asking. We had advanced to the age where kids at school were talking about them. A neighbor was having people over, and we went because the kids were asking. And so I will tell you now that they are 10 and 12, there's no time where they're like, you damaged me by not letting me see fireworks. So anyone who's thinking about not having their very small children see fireworks, I assure you, your children will not hold it against you or feel that they were damaged. And during that time, and even still now, because fireworks go on at all ungodly hours, I make sure that my kids have white noise in their room. Even Ainsley, who doesn't sleep with white noise anymore, usually around that weekend, I'll say, let's turn on your white noise. It will help with all the fireworks because we have neighbors like you who do fireworks and they are really loud. So white noise can be a great tool. Prepping kids that it's July 4th weekend, it's gonna probably be several nights of hearing fireworks, which is both fun and annoying. That's what I tell my kids. It's fun to hear them and it's annoying all at the same time. Um, and acknowledging any fear that shows up and but not overcompensating. So I think those are really my big tips. And if things go sideways, reset very quickly. So if you give in, like you said, to the, okay, I got to do all the things, or you're listening to this episode after the fact and you're like, oh my gosh, I already did all those things, just reset. Acknowledge that, during July 4th, XYZ happened, and now we're going to go back to sleeping in our own beds, sleeping all night, not waking sleeping people, whatever the expectation would be. And I'd love to hear, did you have any other thoughts or tips or advice?
Just one question around prepping. So kind of prep before, ideally before any of the fireworks maybe start. But then on like if you haven't heard any in the night of the 4th of July, would you recommend bringing it back up or just kind of letting it because we kind of talked about that in terms of storms. So I was 4th of July is different because there will probably be fireworks, but we talked about in terms of storms, like if you see a storm is possibly coming on the radar, it's not really necessary to tell them before they go to bed because it's
Hmm.
probably not going to wake them up. And
Yep.
so the stress might cause more. So kind of in terms of that, like giving them a little prep, but not like implanting it as like it's happening tonight.
Yes.
Kind of what's the balance of that look like?
That's a great nuance. Yeah, slightly differently than the storm, since we're pretty sure we'll hear fireworks. I do prep in advance, and it doesn't have to be far in advance. So, listening to how Dom grabbed onto the concept of 4th of July, it makes me think we don't really want to prep him a month in advance because he's probably just going to get more angst about it. If you personally start to hear fireworks the weekend before, you could say, people are so silly. 4th of July is next weekend. It is still 5 days away or whatever, 6 days away. And people are already doing fireworks. I know it's a great excuse to do fireworks because people love fireworks. So you could still be positive, but also be like, isn't that silly that they're still doing it? So you could kind of acknowledge you heard it. And so you could say, I heard them last night if it was Friday. And we might hear more this coming week if people are on vacation and trying to have some fun with fireworks. And then I wouldn't bring it up each night. Like you can just acknowledge you heard some, we might hear some. Um, Probably that weekend you will have some plans around July 4th. He's at the age and he's so dang smart. He's going to catch on now that we're in July 4th weekend. And so
Totally.
I wouldn't talk it up anymore before bedtime unless he asks, like, are there going to be fireworks tonight? You can be like, oh, yeah, we probably will hear fireworks, but hopefully they don't wake you up and just forge ahead. So it's like the prep, but then not the over prep.
Hmm.
It's that really fine line. And this is where I think everyone knows their children best. So you and I know we have one child who's more likely to overthink something. And there are a lot of moments where it's, yes, knowledge is power, but less is more. And then we have the chill child who's like, whatever, I could watch fireworks all day long and never think twice about it.
Yeah.
And so you could tell that child, like, oh, I bet there's going to be fireworks tonight. And they probably won't overthink it. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure we'll have like the whole week or two after as well. Like, why are people still doing fireworks? So we'll have a pre 4th of July, 4th of July, and I mean, I'll just respond to the questions he has about him, but I'm sure he'll be like, wasn't that last weekend? Like, people
Yeah.
set off fireworks for weeks, I feel like.
They do. And that's where I just often will say, like, people are silly.
It's because they think fireworks are fun. That's where I do try to stay upbeat. Like, yes, I think it's annoying that I'm still hearing it, but people think it's fun and people are silly and they like to see fireworks and that's where I kind of fall into the less is more category. Like we acknowledge it and then we just try to move forward.
Hmm.
And it'll be interesting to see, since he's only 3, at some point he'll differentiate the sound of fireworks versus thunder. But you might have some of that over the summer where thunderstorms come in and he's like, there were fireworks. You're like, oh, actually,
Right.
last night it was a thunderstorm. There weren't fireworks. But where he'll have to navigate that, I think. Because last night when we had this thunder, I did think there are some that when it's a little bit in the distance, it kind of does sound like fireworks.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. See how it plays out.
Yeah. Did he like the videos when you showed him the
He
videos?
loved it. He was asking for the videos like all the time after we watched them. Yeah. So he's really interested. Like I think now it's going to be less like frightened by it. Like I think when it first happened and it like jolted him awake, it was like, what's going on? But I think now, I mean, we haven't talked about it in a while, but I think it's less like worry and yeah, just really interested. But again, he hasn't heard them in a while, so we'll see what happens when he actually hears them again and it's brought back to the forefront of his mind.
He's curious, as he should be.
Totally. Yeah.
All right, well, you'll have to come back maybe on one of our before we dive in and fill us in on how it went. But I think we've done a good job of covering 4th of July. Oh, I guess one last tip I will give is if you decide to keep your kids up for fireworks or the fireworks keep your kids up, I come back to the advice I give over and over is when in doubt, go with an early bedtime the next night, particularly if your child has gotten anxious. Going to bed a little bit earlier can help them get ahead of that anxiety, get ahead of being overtired, and help kids reset quickly. So, when in doubt, go with early bedtime. But my guess is the vast majority of people listening are going to be really pleasantly surprised with how well their children sleep, and hopefully they sleep right through the fireworks, and it's a complete non-event. But Ellen, thanks so much for coming on and chatting with me, and I look forward to hearing an update on your July 4th weekend.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison.
All right, bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to How Long Till Bedtime. To learn how we can work together to improve your child's sleep, please visit sleepandwellnesscoach.com.